quickly move to the discussion on market and market models. I'd like to have your thoughts. What is a market? Itebi a Paul, what is a market? Kindly unmute yourself and make an input. Paul?
Hello, sir.
Okay. You have the floor. Go ahead. Talk to us.
Okay. If I'm fair about what you're trying to ask that I should tell you about what the market is. Right?
Yes, that's the question.
Okay. From what I understand, I think a market is a place where the buyer and the seller meet, and most times the buyer has what the seller.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Excuse me, class. It is either we control the background noise or I'll just end this class and go to bed. Put the noise in check or I'll leave the class. I can't take this because I have some very serious things to discuss. Either we put the noise in check or I get out of the class. And I won't say that again. And when I get out, you see me on exam day.
Sorry, sir.
Can you just control this background noise support? Mute everybody, please. Thank you.
If anybody generates a background noise, I'm going to remove the person from the class and you'll not be readmitted. Do we subscribe to that?
Seconded, sir.
Okay. So if you would go to your material, there's I think on page 59, you have the formula for margin of safety, which is sales minus break-even point over sales times 100/1. Take note of that because you may have an examination question that will require you to talk about margin of safety. And margin of safety is the difference. I'm coming back to where I was. Margin of safety is the difference between a current activity level and the break-even activity level. The difference between a current activity level and the break-even activity level is called margin of safety. In other words, if let's assume a business is operating at a certain level, say 100. 100 is where the business is operating. And then suddenly, not suddenly anyway, the business is operating at 100 while its break-even point is 80. Your margin of safety is the current activity level, which is 100, minus the break-even activity level, which is 80. Can you see my screen, please?
Yes, we can.
Okay, see it.
A blank screen, right?
Yes,
now, if current activity level is 100, and then break-even activity level is 80. So what will likely be your margin of safety is the difference between current activity level and the break-even activity level. That gives you the margin of safety. In other words, you are safe so long as you are above the break-even level. I get what I'm saying now. you are safe so long as you are above the break-even level. And then if you cross the break-even level, you are falling down into an unsafe position. So the difference between this current activity level and the break-even activity level is what we call your margin of safety. For example, if the borderline, the unsafe line is 70, break-even is 75. If I am at 100, it means to the extent of 25, I am safe. So if I am at 100, it means between my 100 and 75, which is that break, 25 is my safety margin. I don't know whether you're hearing what I'm saying. Please, for those who can control their background noise, you can ask.
Yeah, we
Yes, sir.
continue.
We can hear you.
So the difference between the current activity level and break-even activity level is what we call your margin of what? Safety. You can have margin of safety in percentage. To get it in percentage, it means 100, 80 minus 100, which is 20 over 100 times 100 over 1. 20 over 100 times 100 over 1. That is the differential over the sales volume. That's the current activity level multiplied by 100 over 1. That gives you your margin of exercise your current activity level minus your break-even activity level. So if I broke even at 80 and I'm operating at 100, what's my margin of safety? My margin of safety is what? 20. It means for me to remember, the reason is simple. At activity levels below break-even, maybe I should. I have to see. Let me see if I can get the diagram in that your material and then share it with us. I want to say a few things about it. Just give me a few minutes. Not very long. I'm going to stop sharing. Let me get the diagram. Just a moment. This is the break-even point because this is where the total revenue curve, see the total cost curve originates from point 0, right? Sorry, it can't. There is total revenue that actually originates from point 0. The reason is that when a business starts up, do you know why? You see the revenue curve is below the cost curve. Can you notice it? Before the break-even point, the revenue line is below the cost line. True or false?
True.
Are you seeing what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
The revenue line is below.
Yes.
The revenue line is below the cost line before the break-even point, and that is why this region will be a loss region. It supposes that revenue is less than what? Cost. But check what happens after the break-even point. What happens? Can you tell me?
The total cost becomes lesser than the total revenue.
You can see that the revenue line is now above the total. And that is why there is profit in this region, because revenue has become higher than what? Cost. So you now see that at break even is that point where revenue is not greater than cost and cost is not greater than what? Revenue. That is just this point. And that is what we call the break-even point. Then you are safe. Once you cross the break-even line, you are safe. Safe from what? Safe from a loss. But if you cross the break-even line downward, you are unsafe. Unsafe because you begin to run at a what? A loss. So your margin of safety now becomes, okay, let's assume our current activity level is 80. If our current activity level is 80 and our break-even activity level is 50, so long as we operate between 80 and 50, we are safe. Once we fall below 50, what happens? We have got into an unsafe region. So your margin of safety now is total activity level plus the break-even activity level at what? 50, which means your margin of safety becomes what? 30. I get what I'm saying. So your margin of safety is 30. So margin of the difference between your activity level, it doesn't mean that when you break even, you stay at your break-even point. No. It is believed that you break even and you enter at region above the break-even point. So the difference between your current activity level and your break-even activity level is what we call your margin of safety. Any questions? Any questions? I thought I should use this diagram to explain margin of safety to you. So I can ask you also, with the end of a diagram, illustrate margin of safety. That can be a question. Draw a break-even, explain break-even curve, and then with the end of that same diagram, explain margin of safety. That means you should mark here, from here now, here to here, from here to here is your margin of what? Safety. From here down here is your margin of safety. But any region below break-even point is an unsafe. Business is safe when it is making profit. A business is unsafe when it is not what? Making profit. When you're running at a loss, you're unsafe. Loss is an unsafe region. Profit is a safe region. Any questions? I got a hand up.
So I have a question.
Okay. Ask your question.
Can you hear me? I have a question.
I can hear you. Ask your question.
Hello.
Ogechi, ask your question. I can hear you.
Okay, so I wanted to know, in a business, if a business lingers at the break-even point for a while, how does it affect the business?
That means you're operating at no profit, no loss. No business pays to linger at the break-even point. And it's almost not possible to stay at the break-even point, because when you break even, you are supposed to break into the profit region. Then when you don't break into the profit region, you can see yourself in the loss region. But then there's a problem with this. What we have here is called the linear break-even point. The linear break-even is almost unrealistic. Now, the linear break-even assumes that once a business breaks even, it will break into loss, never to return to, it will break into profit, never to return to loss. But that's unrealistic. And that's why we have the curve linear. The curve linear break-even believes that this cost line should not be a straight line. It should be a non-linear line, in a manner that you have multiple break-even points. You can break even, enter profits, maybe due to business shocks and vicissitudes, you see yourself in loss again, break even again, enter profit again. You can see yourself in loss, you can see yourself in profit. That's what looks more realistic. But the linear is one of the arguments against the linear break-even analysis. When you break even, you leave loss, never to return there. But that's untrue. That's unrealistic. It doesn't really agree with practical business environment. In a practical business setting, you can break even. Maybe there's recession, as we have in Nigeria. Businesses may fall back to loss. Then from there, they break even again, get to profit, break even at some point, get to profit. So breaking even, getting into profit, getting into loss can be cyclical. I don't know what I mean. It can be cyclical. It may not just be a one-off thing. It can be just once in a lifetime event in the business kind of life, So that is the point. So it's unreal to stay at the break-even point for a long time. And also, it's also unreal for you to break even profit. I don't know whether I answered your question.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Please, any other question? Any other question? Can I assume we are on the same page?
Yes, sir.
I'm seeing some people who are not supposed to be in this class.
Sorry, sir. A quick question. Hello, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So the curve for the margin of safety, how does the curve relate in the diagram?
It's not a curve. It's a region. It's a region. Okay, now can you see my cursor?
Your cursor, yes, sir. Where are the profits?
Now from here down to here. Can you see it? From here down to here, these regions are called the margin of what? Safety.
Okay.
Yeah, the margin of safety. Then the regions below the break-even curve, break-even point rather, are the unsafe region. The regions above the break-even point are the safe word region. So you can just mark it. You can just mark from here down to the break-even point. Are you see what I'm doing? Can you see what I'm doing?
Yes, sir.
From here down to the break-even point.
Yes, sir.
And then all these regions are they represent the margin of safety.
That's the regions above where you have the profit angle.
From the profit angle here now, you draw a vertical line from here down to the break-even point now. Stretch this vertical line up as I'm moving my cursor now. And then you now take it this way down here. All these regions now represent the margin of safety.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right. Any other questions? Can I move on now? Okay, so that settles it on the 5 seconds to knock off. In the absence of questions, let me react to the definition that Paul gave. A market is not a place. A market cannot be a place, but a market can be any place. A market is not a place, but a market can be any place. It may sound paradoxical, but I'll explain what I mean. Assuming number 5, 6th Avenue is termed a marketplace. And then on a beautiful morning, every buyer and seller is driven away from that place. Would that place remain a market? Would market activities take place there?
No, it wouldn't, sir.
Wouldn't take place anymore. So what makes a market is not a place. What makes a market is the presence of a buyer and a seller for the purposes of buying and selling. That's what makes a market. And this thing can take place anywhere. We have virtual markets today. You do Jumia. What are the name of all these online selling arrangements? All of them. That's market. So it doesn't have to be a physical place. It doesn't have to be. It can be any place. A market is not a place, but a market can be any place. So take note of that. So a market is not a place, but a market can be any place. So I think we'll soon knock off. Let me pause small. may take any form. It may be over the phone. It may be using a virtual meeting. Any arrangement or mechanism that brings buyers and sellers together for the sake of what? Buying and selling is called a what? A market. Now that's one. Then another sense is market can be defined as the aggregate goods and services. Demand for goods and what? Services. Now, if you're asked what is for a cell phone in Nigeria, maybe somebody is trying to inroute into the Nigerian environment to sell cell phone. He asks you, what is the market for cell phone like in Nigeria? What is he actually asking you?
The market size.
Looking at aggregate demand for it. So a market can refer to, if you say there's no market for it, you say the market is big, it is towards big. So in an implied sense, market can refer to the aggregate demand for goods and what. Now, from here, we can what? No, don't think a product is just like a physical good. Service is a product. For example, bankers do marketing. What do they go to market? They market services. You know, there are some very major differences between tangible products and services. Now, tangible products can be inventorized. Services cannot be inventorized. So tangible products are physical. Services are not physical. Tangible products can be sold uniquely, but services are tied to the service provider. The goodness of the service is a function of who is offering the service. Okay.
Check inside that chair.
Okay, so products can be tangible or intangible, like I was saying. If it is not inventorized, it is physical, it can be easily sold. You know, it's there on its own. But if it is intangible, it means it cannot be inventorized. It is not. It's not a standalone thing. You know, it's not a standalone thing. It depends on who. The effectiveness is tied to the effectiveness of the human element in marketing it. Take, for example, if you are offering a banking services, you cannot disassociate the service from who is offering it. The emotions, the temperament, and the disposition of the person offering the service can interfere with the service. So unlike a product, you can see a frowning seller of a car, and you negotiate with him and buy your car and drive your car away. I'll only remember the car without remembering the face of the one that sold it to you. But when you are opening an account with a bank, and then you walk into a banking hall, and then you see a customer care person trying to open an account for you, you will live with the impression on the face of the countenance, the visage of the person offering you the service. You know, if the person was frowning, was happy, was friendly, was antagonistic, those are all those things are put together to represent the service. So products are uniquely sold, but services are so intangible and so tied to the person offering it that you cannot draw a line between the service and the person offering the service. So these are so bottom line. Product can be tangible or intangible. So when there's a product to be bought and sold, there is a market. Then 2, there is a buyer who is supposed to be the person using the service, the person to whom the service is offered or to whom the product is offered. And then there's a seller, that's the offerer of the product. And then there's also an exchange value. An exchange value, which is what? Price. So the presence of these 4 things make a market. No matter where they are located, when these 4 things are present, you can say there's a market. Do you agree with me?
Yes, sir, we do.
Yes, sir.
So there's a product, there's a buyer, there's a seller, and then there's an exchange value for the product. And there's that's what the seller is willing to offer it at, and what the buyer is willing to take it away at. What the seller is willing to take to part with his product, and what the buyer is ready to give up because of the product. So all these things, when present, represent what we may call market. Okay. Now, generally, we have the issue of a perfect and an imperfect market. You remember that? At least you should remember that from your elementary economics. But I'm going to say something that's going to make it sound better. In those days, you only remember perfect and imperfect market, and you're able to load the characteristics into your head and offload them at the slightest request. But you should know better than this. You're a master's degree person. You should be masterly about your knowledge of things. If you look at the perfect market, perfect in what sense? Perfect in what sense? That's the point. Perfect in what sense? Perfect in the sense of the absence of all inhibitions to competition. When you hear the word perfect market, is an abridged form of perfectly competitive market. So when a market is said to be perfectly competitive, it means all barriers, all restrictions, all inhibitions to competition are removed. I don't know whether we are together. So a perfect market is a market where all inhibitions, all barriers, all restrictions to competition are removed. Now, if that is the definition of a perfect market, permit me to ask, a perfect market truly exists?
Does not, sir.
No, it doesn't.
There are many frictions there in the market.
Okay, now a market is perfect. It means 1, you have large number of buyers and sellers. Right? 2, you have free entry and free exit. Now, when we think of free entry and free exit, don't begin to come into Alaba International Market. The gate is always open. So when you want to leave Alaba, it's also open. So you can enter freely and exit. No, it is talking about becoming a part of the market in the sense of either being a buyer or what, a seller. How do I put it? No.
Not that we have because I'm 1 minute.
You have a nice voice.
I don't know.
You sing for me once, okay?
you want to get
What is it? I'm removing people from this class. I've removed 2 people. So I've removed Chikezi Oguam and I've removed Nora from this class because they made noise. So when you start making noise, I put you in the waiting room. From there you go. Go and continue with the noise making. So when there is free entry and free, that means there are no barriers to entry. You can become a part of the market. For example, so many markets, before you join, to become a tanker driver, to become someone that lifts maybe crude oil or something from anywhere.
Hello.
There are registrations. There are entry requirements. There are things you've got to do to be able to join markets. So in a pet market, all such barriers do not exist. Then there is also price homogeneity. There is price homogeneity in a perfect market. There is product homogeneity in a perfect market. Price is homogeneous, product is homogeneous. That means competition is not price-based. Competition is not price-based. And then competition is also not product-based. Competition is not price-based. Competition is also not product or persuasion, compete by competition, not product-based competition, because the price has to be homogeneous, the product has to be homogeneous. So that means you will now have a large number of buyers and sellers offering homogeneous product at homogeneous prices. Large number of buyers and sellers offering homogeneous product at homogeneous price. That's what a competition is. So get that. Absence of regulation. That means the market is not regulated. By that, it means you allow the unrestricted flow of the forces of demand and supply. Price is determined by the interaction of demand and supply. It's not price is not centrally fixed. It's not regulated. What is determined by the interaction of demand and supply. These are some these are some of the features of a perfect market. Now, if you look at the flip side, so an imperfect market is a market that is imperfectly competitive. That means there are impurities, there are imperfections that limit competition. There are impurities, there are imperfections that limit competition. For example, if you have a restricted number of buyers and sellers, it already has killed competition. Maybe one seller, if it is either a buyer's monopoly or a seller's monopoly. There's a buyer's monopoly. How many of you have heard of a market that is called a monopsony? Not monopoly. There's monopoly and there's monopsony. I will stay here.
Yes, sir, we're here.
So when it's a buyer's monopoly, it is called what? A monopsony. When it is a seller's monopoly, it is called what? Monopoly. When you have just a seller of a particular product without close substitutes, it becomes an imperfect market. That means the market has restrictions, has barriers to competition. There are barriers to when there are few buyers and sellers, there's imperfection. No free entry and exit, there is imperfection. Price homogeneity, there is price heterogeneity, there is imperfection. Product heterogeneity, there is also imperfection. Government regulation, there is imperfection. it does appear I'm going to take some minutes out of this class and then come back. It's going to be some extended break because my attention is needed somehow now. Hello.
Yes, sir. We
Hello.
We can hear you, sir.
Yes, please, can we reconvene in 40 minutes? There's something I just need to attend to now.
That's fine, sir. No problem.
We reconvene in 40 minutes.
It's okay, sir.
Let's reconvene in 40. Can everybody hear me? Can everybody hear me?
Yes,
can
sir.
you hear me?
I can hear you, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. So we have to start now. All right. Okay. So we were looking at markets. So I was getting right into the various classifications. So we said it may be perfect or what, imperfect. And I did say that it's imperfect when there are impurities or imperfections that sort of limits when there are imperfections that limit competition. The market is considered imperfect. The market is considered imperfect. When there are imperfections that limit competition, when there are imperfections competition, consider the market imperfect. And I did also say that such imperfections may include restriction in the number of buyers and sellers, information asymmetry. I hope you know what is information asymmetry. Does anybody know what is information asymmetry? Does anybody know what is information asymmetry?
Yeah, I think it means.
Okay. When there is an imbalance in information sharing, market behavior can be influenced by imbalance in market information. For example, if A doesn't know what, and C doesn't know what A knows, that can influence market behavior. People can begin to act based. Information determines action. Take for instance, let me use a very common example, like the stock market. If someone is aware of the swing, that's the volatility in price. The swing, that's the volatility in price. To fall. That's what they did. How many of you remember the era of transport? That's what they did. You remember the era of transport? What happened with the share price? You remember how they managed or kind of share price? Permit me to use the word fake. They created a fake scenario, making people believe that the price is what it is not. So people bought into those shares at a higher price, and those who had privileged information, they knew that the crash was coming. Those who had privileged information, they knew that the crash was coming. Who were not privileged to have information held on until they became nothing in their hands. So that's information asymmetry. When a market is perfect, there is no information. Asymmetry is information symmetry. So in a perfect market, there is information symmetry, while in an imperfect market, there is information asymmetry. Are we together? While in an imperfect market, there is information asymmetry.
Yes, sir.
Or are we together?
Come again with that.
Yes, sir. That there is information
Come again with that.
Symmetry. And then here there is information asymmetry. And not only is this information symmetrical, it's also free-flowing. There's a free flow of costless information. Not only is this information symmetrical, it's also free-flowing. There's a free flow of. It doesn't cost anything to get this information. But when it doesn't cost anything to get this information. Information asymmetric, and information can be privileged. And you know, behavior of market agent, behavior of market agent, and information can be privileged. And you know, behavior of market agent, behavior of market agent. So that's the issue. So, like what we're saying, the bottom line is just that in a perfect market, so there are no imperfections that restrict competition. While in an imperfect market, there are imperfections, there are inhibitions, there are impurities that restrict the flow of competition. There are inhibitions. So, there are impurities that restrict the flow of competition. So there are in a perfect market no restrictions to competition. If I will say perfect is perfectly competitive market. Imperfect, so there are imperfectly competitive market. No, you know, markets can be classified on several fronts. There are several perfectly competitive market. Imperfectly competitive market. You know, markets can be classified on several fronts. Classified on the basis of transaction. Now, what kind of transaction takes place? Classified on the basis of transaction can become a base for market classification. You know, is it a spot market, a forward market, or a futures market? For market classification. You know, is it a spot market, a forward market, or a futures market? Based on transaction, what's the nature of transaction in the market? You can also classify a market based on the commodity that is offered. Okay, you can classify a market based on the volume of business. Transaction, what's the nature of transaction in the market? You can also classify a market based on looking at volume of business. You see a wholesale market, or retail market, and all that. You can also classify a market based on the importance, degree of importance. You see a wholesale market, or retail market, primary market. You can also classify a market based on the importance, degree of importance. You see primary market. You can also classify a market even if it is on Christmas Day. When I touched okay, so okay, so I want to look at some. Can you still hear me? Loud and clear. All right, so let's look at some forms of imperfect market. Already I've listed some. Now, monopsony is okay. Okay, so let's begin from the more popular. What's a monopoly? I list a few. If I'm in the same party with you, duopoly. We also have.
All right, so let's look at some forms of imperfect market. Already I've listed some. Now, monopsony. Monopsony is okay. Now let's begin from the more popular one. What's a monopoly?
These under different types of.
Let me just list a few things. We have monopoly. We have duopoly.
We look at perfect
we also
competition.
Have an oligopoly. Then we have monopolistic
then
competition.
We'll look at
now, here we can bring down these under different types of competition. When we look at monopolistic competition,
we will see more of these.
We'll look at perfect competition.
We'll be looking at probably in our next class. I think by the time we exhaust this, we will be able to close for tonight. Then next time we'll go to the types of competition. We'll look at monopolistic competition, perfect competition, and pure monopoly.
We'll look at
their respective pricing and output decisions. Pricing and output decision under these different markets.
We will see more of these. What we'll be looking at probably in our next class. I think by the time we exhaust this, we will be able to close for tonight. And next time we'll go to the types of competition where we'll look at monopolistic competition, perfect competition, and pure monopoly. We'll look at their respective pricing and output decisions. Pricing and output decision under these different market models. And let's begin with monopoly. What's a monopoly? I would require an answer.
Monopoly.
Somebody should tell me what the monopoly is.
So we said that is a market whereby
monopoly is a market just where
only
one seller has monopoly of
many buyers. Then the goods and
services. A monopoly is a market. A monopoly is a market where one seller has monopoly of selling. No work done.
Okay, I think. One, it is an imperfect
market. You use monopoly to explain monopoly.
Monopoly is an imperfect market.
So we said that it's a market whereby there is only one buyer and then
an imperfect
only one seller rather than many buyers. Then the goods and services that the seller is selling, there are no close substitutes.
Okay, I think many. One, it is an imperfect market. Let's begin from there. A monopoly is an imperfect market. Why is it imperfect? Because there are imperfections that stop competition.
What really makes a monopoly is the absence of a substitute. When there is no close substitute, that means there is a monopoly. And then it has to be a single seller market, and there has to be many buyers.
And no close substitutes.
You raised your hand.
It is important to include no close substitute. What really makes a monopoly is the absence of a substitute. When there is no close substitute, that means there is a monopoly. And then it has to be a single seller market, and there has to be many buyers as well.
Why, sir? Why we say markets?
Wow, please. You raised your hand.
Okay, now let's look at the telecom industry in Nigeria before the advent of GSM. That can give us a good example of monopoly. When Nitel held Swell, how many of you remember? Nitel was the sole supplier of forms of telecom services, and there are many users.
Okay, now let's look at the telecom industry in Nigeria. And then before the advent of GSM,
when it was telephony,
that can give us a good example of
services.
Monopoly.
It has to
when Nitel held Swell. How many of you remember?
That was an example of
Nitel was the sole supplier of all forms of telecom services. And there are many users. There were many users.
Power holding company.
Just as there are still many users of telecom services. And then there was no substitute
public power
when it was telephony or
ask me how about a generator. I don't believe a generator set is a perfect substitute for public
power. That's an example of monopoly.
And in terms
of if you look at it again at
So when you look at it closely, you will find more of government monopoly.
Power holding company.
For example, NNPC
I think it looked like NEPA was a monopoly
over
when it comes to the offering of public power supply. You may ask me how I buy a generator. I don't believe a generating set is a perfect substitute for public power supply.
But what you have in most
terms of cost
are
government in terms of environmental financial factors brought in.
And this product
so when you look at it closely, you will find more of government monopoly. For example, NNPC looks like a monopoly over the oil industry.
Okay. Now, let us look at some types of
the downstream.
We can have geographical monopoly.
Sellers who deal directly with consumers. But what you have in most instances are government monopolies. So there's a product, and this product has no substitute, and there's just one seller, and there are many buyers. I don't know whether I tried to answer that
monopoly by patents.
Yes, I'm very well, sir.
Okay. Now, let us look at some types of monopoly. We can have geographical monopoly.
There are different factors and different types of.
We can have technical monopoly.
Factors that can lead to.
We have monopoly by law.
Monopoly. For example, a geographical monopoly can arise as a result of
monopoly by patents.
Let's assume a particular place has a natural resource that
monopoly by amalgamation.
That geographical expression.
There are different factors and different types of
area in
monopoly. Things that can factors that can lead to the emergence of monopoly. For example, a geographical monopoly can arise as a result of a natural endowment. Let's assume a particular place has a natural resource that no other place around that, that geographical expression
to a particular geographical area. Maybe that area has
the Niger Delta area in Nigeria.
And by that, it becomes
geographical monopoly.
You can also have monopoly, technical monopoly. Technical monopoly is a kind of monopoly that arises due to the technical impossibility
of what oil. I don't know what I'm saying. So a natural endowment can
break the monopoly of
right
NEPA
to a particular geographical area. Maybe that area has
another company their electric cables and poles.
Do not have.
And that means you can have several cables and poles put in the country. The country can
geographical monopoly. You can also have monopoly, technical monopoly. Technical monopoly is a kind of monopoly that arises due to the technical impossibility of
it becomes almost technically impossible to have another person in that.
But it has been you want to break the monopoly of NEPA. How would you do it?
A technical monopoly can
another company put their electric cables and poles. That means you can have several cables and poles put in the country. The country can become
public set up by
a litter of electrical poles and cables. So by that, by the nature of the country and the service that they offer, it becomes almost technically impossible to have another person in that
by the expression of the law.
So when
such an organization
competition becomes technically impossible,
monopoly can also arise by patent. Patent when someone makes
we have monopoly by law.
For example, there's no known cure for HIV and AIDS. If someone makes a scientific breakthrough tomorrow, or maybe a firm makes a scientific breakthrough,
the law establishing them removes competition, gives exclusive rights to this organization to either produce or distribute a particular product. By the expression of the law, such an organization is made a monopoly. Monopoly can also arise by patent. You know what patent right? When someone makes a discovery, for example, there's no known cure for HIV and AIDS. If someone makes a scientific breakthrough tomorrow, or maybe a firm makes a scientific breakthrough and discovers the drug for HIV and AIDS.
That's why when there's amalgamation, the law will look at it to ensure that
exclusively manufacture and distribute this product over a period of time without competition.
Let's assume all
that
the
can create a monopoly by patent.
And all that
Then monopoly by amalgamation arises when previously competing firms,
that means there will just be
when previously competing firms now come together to form one.
As a result of that,
when they come together, they kill all forms of competition and become a sole producer and distributor of the product. That's why when there is amalgamation, the law will look at it to ensure that amalgamation does not result in a monopoly. Because amalgamation can, if let's assume all the
Then let me quickly talk about these other two before we wrap up for tonight. Now, duopoly is a two-seller market. When a market becomes a two-horse race, there are two sellers. It's also an imperfect market because there should be many sellers in a market. When there are two sellers of a particular product with many buyers and no close substitutes, that means instead of having one, you have two. That's a duopoly. When there's collusion, let me
quickly talk about these other
that means the two sellers colluding. They can easily form a monopoly. By amalgamation, they can form a monopoly.
When a market becomes a two-horse race,
close to
there are two sellers. It's also an imperfect market because there should be many sellers in a market.
Monopoly.
When there are two sellers
instead of one seller, you have two sellers.
A particular product with many buyers and no close substitutes. That means instead of having one, you have two.
Is when there are
that's a duopoly.
Few.
When there's collusion, you have collusive duopoly. That means the two sellers colluding, they can easily form a monopoly. By amalgamation, they can form a monopoly. So duopoly is very close to, is proximate monopoly. Duopoly is proximate monopoly. Incipient monopoly. So when it's very close,
I did a walk
instead of one seller, you have two sellers, like a two-horse race. Then oligopoly. Oligopoly is when there are few sellers and many buyers, not
OPEC.
just few sellers and many buyers of the product.
OPEC member nations. One of the things I was able to stress in that work, let me see if I can just have a flash.
I did a work on OPEC
and then share
to soon get out. I have the raw file out already to soon be published. Maybe if it comes out anytime soon, I may share it, share the published copy with you. The work is accepted in OPEC. OPEC member nations. One of the things I was able to stress in that work, let me see if I can just have a flash of the work and then share that little portion with you.
Can you see my?
Yes, sir. Oligopoly, few seller, and many buyers.
No, that's not what I want.
Okay, no, we haven't seen it.
Can you now the position of the petroleum exporting was but it has at some point or the other been described as a cartel that function like a collusive oligopoly for major oil exporting countries of the world.
Yes, sir.
To
oligopoly, few seller and many buyers.
No, that's not what I want.
Okay, no, we haven't finished.
And many buyers. Now, if you check, there are around about 16 OPEC member countries.
The position of the petroleum exporting was but it has at some point or the other been described as a cartel that functions like a collusive oligopoly for major oil exporting countries of the world.
OPEC countries. So it now means that there are few countries that are oil exporting, while there are many countries that are oil consuming. So the OPEC countries are the few sellers.
Then
we have what we call collusive
if you check, there are around about 16 OPEC member countries, about 16 or so OPEC member countries. And then there are over
we have what we call non-collusive
200 consumer countries of the world that consume oil.
When is oligopoly?
And this oil majorly comes from these OPEC
oligopoly
countries.
Is said to be collusive when it does.
So it now means that there are few
OPEC does.
countries
OPEC is called a
that are oil exporting,
cartel.
while there are many countries
Now,
that are oil
consuming.
So the OPEC countries are the few sellers.
Now a
Then
is
we have what we call collusive oligopoly.
A group of people that does or maybe sells the same thing, but they have a way of coming
collusive
together
oligopoly,
to make joint
and we have what we
price
call
and
non-collusive
output decisions.
oligopoly.
When oligopoly
When is
makes
oligopoly said
joint
to
price
be
and what
collusive?
output
Oligopoly
decisions.
is said to be collusive when it does what
Just like OPEC. You know,
OPEC does.
this.
OPEC is
That's
called
why OPEC
a
is called a cartel.
cartel.
Because it makes joint
Now,
price
a
and
cartel to refer to some
and then it uses
extra organization, groups, and all that. Now, a
so they now determine what each member country will produce. The barrel of oil that
refers to a collusive
oligopoly,
oligopoly, a group of people that does or maybe sells the same thing,
controlling price.
but they have a way of coming together to make joint price and output decisions.
And then take decisions on how
when
how
oligopoly makes joint price and what output decisions.
Collusive oligopolies
Just like OPEC,
monopoly.
you know, OPEC does this. That's why OPEC is called a cartel, because it makes joint price and output
function
decisions. It uses product.
Now, when
so they don't determine each member country
they
will
don't come
produce
together.
the barrel of
They don't
oil
function
that
like a
each
cartel or a
member
price
country
ring. They
can
don't function like a
export
cartel.
So when they do that, they are doing it with the intention of controlling price. So when this oligopoly, though they are few, come together, they batch.
They don't jointly determine price.
And then take decisions on how output is
rather,
determined.
everybody functions on his own. Then in that case,
collusive oligopolies function like monopoly. When oligopoly is strongly collusive, they begin to
monopsony is the buyer's monopoly.
Function like what? Like now, when oligopoly is non-collusive, it means they don't come together. They don't function like a cartel or a price ring. They don't function like a cartel. Everyone functions independently. That means a certain degree of competition is allowed because these oligopolies and they don't jointly determine price. They don't jointly determine what output. Rather, everybody functions on its own. Then, in that case, the oligopoly is said to be what non-collusive.
If you must
then, lastly, we have what we call monopsony.
Now,
monopsony is the buyer's monopoly.
Only buyer of labor, while all the citizens are labor. So in that,
the buyer's what? Monopoly.
The
now,
labor
it is an imperfect market with one buyer and many sellers
labor market
of a product without close what? Substitute. I'll give you a very simple example. If you go to a socialist state,
while all the workers who are sellers of labor sell to the same person.
The only that is government production and distribution of goods and what services. I hope I'm correct.
Yes, sir.
Now, if that is true, it means if you must work, have to work for the government. Now, it means that the government becomes the only buyer of labor, while all the citizens are labor. So, in that case, the labor in state is said to be monopolistic. It's a monopsony. The labor market in a socialist state is a monopsony because the government is the only buyer of labor, while all
and sufficient explanation differentiates the short run and the long run of monopolistic competition from the short run and the long run of perfect competition. It's a likely question. So, but we will talk about that before the time. So, I would at this point pause and allow you to ask your questions if you have them. In the absence of which, we can retire for the night. Remember, I gave you an assignment, more like a reading assignment. When we come the next time, I'll expect to have a discussion on that. The assignment is advance the argument for and against monopoly.
The short run
raise
and the long run of monopolistic competition from the short run and the long run of perfect competition. It's a likely question. So, but we will talk about that before the time. So, I would, at this point...
Can I address your questions?
Pause and allow you to ask your questions if you have.
Maybe God willing, if I have another class with you, then the last class will be just a bit of a revision. And maybe if I want to, or if I consider it necessary, I might give you a...
Remember, I gave you an assignment, more like a reading assignment. But we'll come the next time. I'll expect to have a discussion on that. The assignment is...
Sorry, sir. Can I just drag you back a little?
And
this last question monopoly. That you said,
raise
with the aid of a diagram, I didn't
ways
get that.
of controlling the emergence of monopoly.
My network was fluctuating. I didn't get all the...
Please don't get it. You can get it the next. Okay, I said with the aid of a diagram.
Can I
with the aid of a diagram differentiate the short run and the long run of monopolistic competition.
Maybe God willing, if I have another class with you, then the last class will be just a bit of a revision.
Short run of pure monopoly and the long run of... I can use either pure monopoly and perfect competition or use perfect competition and perfect
area of concentration and
monopolistic competition. So they have their short run and their long run respect, and they differ.
So you may be asked to use diagrams
to differentiate.
Sorry, sir. Can I just help you of any of this last question that you said?
And that is the
with the aid of a diagram. I didn't get that.
We will discuss that in greater detail.
My network was fluctuating. I didn't get all the good.
But I just want you to
please don't get it. You can get it the next. Okay, I said with the aid of a diagram. With the aid of a diagram, differentiates the short run and the long run of monopolistic competition from the short run and the long run of perfect competition.
I'm not so sure about
short run of pure monopoly
as an example
and the long run
of
I can use either pure monopoly and perfect competition or use perfect competition and perfect
that means
and
there is a
monopolistic competition. So they have their short run, their long run respect, and they differ.
I mean, for instance,
so you may be asked to use diagrams to differentiate the short run and the long run of any of the two of them. So, and that is the profit output determination in both short run and long run. We will discuss that at a greater detail in the next class. But I just want you to begin to condition your mind to. I don't have secret when it comes to exam question. I tell you, but some of you still I tell you.
I mean, for instance, say that OPEC is
whereas the about
where you have few sellers and many buyers.
But then there are non-OPEC countries as well. So where does those ones come under?
That's what he was trying to say. He said only about 16 countries make up.
Hello?
You understand? Then those other countries that are not there are the buyers.
No, non-OPEC that also sell.
Okay, then OPEC is not oil producing and exporting countries.
I think,
but there are countries that are exporting.
To make you understand it, like in OPEC now, okay, the example he gave, like Russia and not OPEC countries, right?
They export oil as well.
Yeah. But if you look at the buyers and the sellers now, of which both the OPEC countries and non-OPEC countries that sell oil.
But then there are non-OPEC countries as well. So where does those ones come under?
More than the sellers. That's the point he was trying to make. As in, based on this would be good for the.
Then those other countries that are not there are the buyers.
So even if you decide to add the Russia and America,
non-OPEC that also sell,
you cannot compare them with the number of buyers that are as high as 200 countries.
But there are countries that are exporting.
To make you understand it, like in OPEC now, the example he gave, like Russia and not OPEC countries, right? They are not oil as well. Yeah. But if you look at the buyers and the sellers now, of which both the OPEC countries and non-OPEC countries that sell oil, they are, as the buyers are far more than the sellers. That's the point he was trying to make. As in, based on this, will be good all the definition and expansion. You get it now. So even if you decide to add the Russia and America and some other non-OPEC countries, you cannot compare them with the number of buyers that are as high as 200 countries or 100 and something countries, if I'm not mistaken.
I mentioned about 200 countries.
Also, I can let you right-click my name and give it the host right. A class was going on in my absence.